Hi, my name is Katie and today I'm going to be talking to you about all the books I read in the month of May. During the month of May I took part in a challenge to read 100 pages a day for 26 days. We called this challenge Pages for Periods and we were asking people to sponsor us to raise money for Bloody Good Period. This is a charity that supports people who are affected by period poverty by providing them with sanitary products. So we managed to raise over £2,500 throughout the month, and I think I read a lot more than I usually would, so all in all it was a great success. The first book that I read in May was called Son the Fanatic. It's a book by Hanif Kureishi, and it explores a British Pakistani man who's trying to understand his son's devotion to Islam. I like the premise of this book. Unfortunately, I felt like the execution played into negative stereotypes of the Muslim community. I didn't appreciate this about it, and I'm a bit cautious about reading more from this author for this reason. Let me know if you think I've misread this text, or if you feel like maybe different parts of his work would maybe be better to read. The second book that I read in May was Night Sky with Exit Wounds by Vuong. This was a poetry collection and it explored his heritage as a Vietnamese refugee who arrived in the United States of America at age 2. I really enjoyed this. At first I found it difficult to understand his poetry style, but I read a really great article in The Guardian which explained his background and his writing style a lot better. So once I had read that, I felt like I got a lot more out of the poetry collection and I really enjoyed it in the end. I'm looking forward to reading more from him. The third book that I read was Uncomfortably Happily by Yeon-Sik. This was a lovely graphic novel. I really enjoyed it. I loved the illustrations. They were just so sweet and simple and really appealed to me. Let's see if I can show you some. That's lovely. The depictions of this male-female relationship were lovely and felt very familiar to me, and I just really enjoyed this book. I then read this short story collection which focuses on writings from Japan, either people who lived there, who were born there, or people who visited Japan. I did enjoy this quite a lot. Some of it was better than others, some pieces were better than others, but that's kind of to be expected with any collection. Some of my favourite pieces were Blue Moon by Hiromi Kawakami. I loved the discussion there about translation, about language, and about connection. I also loved Primal Mountain by Yuji Hamada. I loved the sort of discussion about perspective here. It was a photo collection, so it was one of the most unusual pieces in the book, but I did really like it and I really connected with it. I also really liked Breakfast by Toshiki Okada, and I liked the fact that this explored a relationship breakdown. I then read Eileen by Ottessa Moshfegh, and I didn't like this one really, to be honest. I feel like this is a perfect explanation of why content warnings are important in books. And in reviews of books, I found it extremely difficult to read. The themes in it are just disturbing. It's not explained on the back at all, but actually this does explore some, quite frankly, revolting themes, which I think that a reader should be told about before going into a book, personally. I really liked My Year of Rest and Relaxation, and I do feel like with that one you understand at least partly what you're getting into, but with this one I feel like you were kind of hoodwinked to think this was going to be an interesting social exploration, where to me it just fell short completely. I then read Children of the Sea by Daisuke Igarashi. I was disappointed in this one as well. This is a graphic novel again. I felt like it was lacking in like a plot substance really. It feels like a setup novel for a series, and unfortunately because it was lacking in such plot, I just felt like, do I even want to continue with this series? So I was disappointed. I then read Invisible Differences by Julie Dachez, and this is a translated French graphic novel, and I really enjoyed this one. It's about a woman's experience of diagnosis with autism. It was emotionally powerful for me, and I found myself really connecting with the woman in the book. I felt like the only issue that I had with this was the use of the word Asperger's, or the term Asperger's, because people in the autism community have told me that this is an outdated term, and while I understand that maybe France is on a different journey in terms of its knowledge about autism and its understanding of autism, I did feel like this was outdated in a UK context. I also felt like in the end pages where it discusses what is autism, they kind of oversimplified it and this was disappointing. But on the whole, as an actual story, this story was lovely, and as I say, very emotionally powerful for me, something that I really enjoyed. I then read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This was a really fast-paced YA mystery novel. It kept me guessing throughout, and I did actually really enjoy this one. I liked that it kind of had parallels to the Adnan Syed case, which you might be familiar with if you've listened to the Serial podcast. And I was kind of noticing parallels between the cases, and I felt like maybe the author was nodding to it, or maybe I was just reading too much into it. But either way, I thought it was a really good book. I did enjoy it. I then read One by One by Ruth Ware, and I was reading this at such a fast pace. I was really enjoying it until the killer was revealed. And then I was like, what? You made me read all of that for that reveal? Are you joking? What a disappointment. I felt it was lazy. I felt it was disappointing. I felt it was just too predictable. And I also felt like the character of Liz, she read to me like she was autistic. And I would love to hear if other people read her that way, because to me, that was very problematic, that depiction of Liz. I didn't enjoy that aspect of it, and that made the novel 2 stars for me. I just really did not enjoy it. I then read Breakfast at Bronzefield by Sophie Campbell. This is a memoir by a Black British woman who shares her experiences of living in HMP Bronzefield, which, if you're not familiar, is a prison. I really enjoyed this book, actually. I thought it was very, very powerful, very, very moving, and very important. I think it's brilliant that we're seeing voices of women with convictions in the publishing world, and I would love to see more women with convictions have their story be told. Honestly, while reading this book made me so angry at the injustices of the criminal justice system in the UK. It made me angry about the way race plays a role, about the way that gender plays a role, and I did have to stop reading at one point because I did find myself getting so angry at the system. Although Sophie is not her real name, I do applaud her for speaking out about her experiences in the criminal justice system, in particular with regards to sexual violence, which is something that people do not hear anything about, or very little is said about, and I think it's very important that people understand what it means to be a woman who is in prison in the UK. I have a background in working with women with convictions, and I can tell you that all kinds of women find themselves in prison. I think people need to listen to the experiences of women, in particular Black women in the UK. I then read Tim Ginger by Julian Hanshaw. I really enjoyed this graphic novel's handling of the themes of grief, trauma, and memory, and to a lesser degree, the decision to become a parent. I thought it was nice, it was easy read, but it did handle some important themes. This is a British graphic novelist, and to show you some of the imagery, it's really quite nice, and it varies in colour. It's not just the green, it's also brown, but it is quite a kind of pastel-y palette. So if you like that style of artistry, you might like this one. I then read Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. This was a lovely, light, fun graphic novel about a girl who becomes a sidekick to a supervillain in an effort to take down the institution. I love the rebellion themes in this, and I also love the feminist themes, and the nod to the demonisation of women and what that means. And I think this was a really nice read. I would recommend it. I then read Toffee by Sarah Crossan. I love the writing style in this, and there is a found family trope if you like that in a book. This was a really nice read for me. It was difficult at times to read it. There are some difficult themes in here, and for all of these books I will put content warnings in the description. But I think this is important and it's powerful, and it's a YA novel again, so I think it's useful to see some of these difficult themes playing out in YA. In particular, domestic violence features heavily in this, and I think that for young people who maybe feel underrepresented or don't understand what's happening in their home, this is a very important read. In this book as well, there features an older woman who has dementia, and I think it's important the way this is discussed, in the sense of it highlights how some of these people who are very vulnerable are often mistreated, and they can be not believed by people. They can be made to feel like they're going insane, or just kind of gaslighted in a way, and I think it's important that we think about our treatment of older people, especially people with dementia, who are very vulnerable. I will read you a short passage from this. It does describe domestic violence, so if that's something that's uncomfortable to you, feel free to skip forward or click off the video. So, hiding. I am hiding my mother, my father, and my father's woman. I am hiding my own home, my new home, my old friends and Marla. I am hiding my body, my bruises, my scars and my burns. I am hiding my whole history and hoping I will forget it. I am hiding everything from you, if only I could hide it from myself. There are a lot of beautiful sections in the book like that, and that was just one of my favourites. But this is one that I would really recommend. So at the end of the month, I'd read 13 books. Some of my favourites were Toffee by Sarah Crossan, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, Breakfast at Bronzefield by Sophie Campbell, Night Sky with Exit Wounds by Vuong, and Uncomfortably Happily by Yeon-Sik. These were all books that I enjoyed for different reasons, some non-fiction, some fiction, and a whole variety within the fiction category. If you have read any of them and want to share your thoughts with me, please do so in the comments below, and I'd love to chat about them with you. So I hope you've enjoyed this wrap up. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time.